Montgomery, and this is Learning Liberty. My co-host, Billy Dubois, is currently out today on location fighting for liberty. We have a special guest today, Amanda Parsons. She is my friend and school teacher. She is going to be talking to us about Common Core, and we're going to be asking her some questions. Here's what we already know about Common Core. My first question for you, Amanda, is how do you feel about Common Core?
Well, Sarah, as a school teacher, I think that Common Core has many advantages, but I think it has disadvantages as well. And I think that some of the advantages include the fact that they want to make a system where a child can learn something possibly in one state, and then if the same state has adopted Common Core, they can move somewhere else, and if that state had Common Core, and supposedly the kid will be able to pick up right where they left off. In essence, there are some flaws with that because some schools tend to teach things in a different order. And, I've lived in 2 different states, and there are a lot of things that I'm teaching my students right now that I was teaching my students in Georgia. But at the same time, there are a lot of things that were taught the year before in 4th grade, because I teach 5th. And then there are some things that are taught even before that. So I think it's not really as consistent as they would like it to be. The math, I understand the why. The students, some of them need the why behind it. They need to understand what they're doing. They need to visually see that. But at the same time, I think that we have strayed away from the traditional methods of doing math, which we could still show the why. And we are confusing a lot of kids right now because of that.
What would you say is the hardest math topic for children in your school?
Maybe not in my school, but honestly, I think that the biggest problem is that the kids are not learning the basics fast enough, and it causes them to not be able to understand other things. Like multiplying, there is no secret trick to multiplication. You just have to memorize your facts. And until the students memorize their facts, there's a lot of other things that they won't be able to do because they haven't learned how to multiply, and they don't understand that multiplication is the same thing as division. It's the same thing as addition. They get really confused when if they understood that, it would make things a lot easier for them.
Now, I just want to let you know we do have Elliot here with us, if you were wondering.
But also, one of the big problems with Common Core is that, for instance, in the state of Georgia, I taught in the 2nd or 3rd largest school district in the state of Georgia, and I saw the needs of my students in the northern part of that school district were drastically different from the southern part of that school district. So how one set of Common Core or set of tests or one way of doing everything is going to help students who are drastically different in just the state or just the county, I don't see how that's going to work for all the different demographics in the United States.
Now, could you maybe say some of the pros and cons about Common Core?
Sure, I can elaborate on that a little bit. Like I said before, I think that standards are important. We need something to gauge our students. I think that we need something in order to measure a guideline, so forth. Like I said, with the math, the the way they're trying to do the math, I think, is confusing. Also, they complain all the time about how parents aren't involved enough in schools, and it's really hard for the parents to be involved when they don't understand what the students are doing. So that's another problem that we have. As far as the biggest problem with Common Core is the testing involved. There's a lot of testing, and because of Common Core, they have to teach to the test. There is a lot of pressure on these students to do well because all the funding leads back to testing. There's just too much testing, and some of these kids have testing anxiety. And also, some of them do multiple choice, and I don't understand how that necessarily gauges what a student knows because anybody can choose the right answer. In school, we learned the basic 8 plus 8 is 16. Okay. These days, they might want to break it down even further. Now, you have to round up to the nearest 10, and then you have to add the ones and add the tens. It's supposed to visually be the way the students can see how the numbers add up. But it's a lot of extra steps than just saying, hey, 8 plus 8 is 16. So it's even more difficult. Another problem I have is that the standards to me, even though I think and agree with standards, look to me like they're not very broad. They're very narrow. So the kids aren't learning such a broad base of things. However, I think it's also the responsibility of the teachers to incorporate as many different materials as possible to bring those standards to life.
Now, I know Common Core is just math, isn't just math, it is also language arts. Do you teach language arts, and if you do, how do you feel about it?
You've touched upon my subject right there. Language arts is my thing. It's my deal. The Common Core, the standards, once again, are important, and there are a lot of good facts in the Common Core that I like about language arts. But I think at times also, again, it doesn't stretch it out enough or include enough. It just kind of goes from grade to grade, just building on the last year, but only changing something a little bit. So I think there's lots of room for improvement overall. I wouldn't completely condemn it, but I would like it more if the students were learning for the sake of learning and not for the sake of testing. I'm not saying all testing is bad, but some kids perform better on projects and expressing themselves that way instead of just consistently taking tests. So yeah, we just tell them to do their best and that we love them and good luck.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us, Amanda. Sadly, that's all we have time for today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much for having me. It was very enjoyable.
That's a wrap for today, folks. We'll see you next time on Learning Liberty!
How did he get here?